Hi, welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, January 2, 2025. Time in Texas about 2 p.m. Some of the things we'll be covering. A lightning attack on several significant U.S. buildings. A shooting in Queens, New York. A bombing in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. So let's get started. On December 31, we had lightning hit three significant U.S. buildings, the Empire State Building, the Washington Capitol Building in D.C., the Washington Monument in D.C., lightning. And then we also saw a vehicle loaded with explosives hit in New Orleans. It was a F-150 electric vehicle, lightning. It's believed that all of these incidents are tied together, most likely coordinated by the CIA and Black Ops programs in the U.S. military. So that's going on. And now we have this. So we have from CNN. In a presser by the FBI, the shooter in New Orleans, Jabbar, who was previously in the U.S. Army and had served at Fort Bragg, as had the explosives Army Green Beret who brought about the attack in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we saw in New Orleans, we saw a bombing plus individuals hit by a vehicle. We saw in Las Vegas a bombing. These two were perpetrated by one with a previous U.S. Army enlistment and had served also in National Guard. This individual in Las Vegas, active duty Special Forces Green Beret, both had served at Fort Bragg. So it's believed they are connected. Now, Jabbar and so the name of the bomber in New Orleans is Jabbar, and then we had the second bomber, and they both rented their vehicles. So they rented vehicles through an app, Turo. It's believed this is also another tie, another indicator that these two are connected. Jabbar lived in Houston, Texas. And he rented the vehicle, I believe, in Houston and then drove to New Orleans. Both of these vehicles, this one came from Colorado and went to Nevada. Both were tracked by cameras along the way. If you haven't seen the movie Eagle Eye, it would be good to do that because details are coming out indicating that drivers can be tracked from one state to another. They have details on where they rented the vehicles, where they left, when they arrived, one in New Orleans, one in Las Vegas, along with facial recognition. So Jabbar, the bomber in New Orleans, rented his vehicle December 30, and then drove to New Orleans December 31. Along the way, he made several posts on Facebook and other social media platforms. I support ISIS. Many believe that ISIS stands for Israeli Security Intel Service. We do know, and I have put out previously, that many of these terrorist groups, ISIS, Hamas, the HTS we see in Syria now, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, are brought about, funded, and trained and controlled by the U.S. CIA, also black ops in both the CIA and the U.S. military, and by Mossad out of Israel. So, Jabbar joined ISIS in the summer of 2023, and he had made a will. And so far, FBI and the New Orleans police have recovered 2 IEDs, improvised bombs, in that area. So he meant to activate bombs. Now, Atlas Shrugged on Before It's News and Fox News, talking about the shooter in New Orleans, and detailing information about his vehicle, that it had crossed the border into Texas on Eagle Pass 2 days ago. Now, the rumor in New Orleans is that there were 4 shooters. We also know that Jabbar also opened fire on police and individuals in the area where he struck at the intersection of Bourbon Street and Orland Street. And it's being put forth possibly that he was an illegal. Not true. He is a U.S. citizen who lived in Houston, Texas. Jabbar had served in active duty in the U.S. Army, and after that served active duty in the National Guard. He has been disassociated from active military duty for several years. His Texas driver's plate was tracked from Texas to New Orleans, another indicator of how we are observed with cameras everywhere. So that's going on. And now we have this. Also, Atlas Shrugs brings this out. The FBI also recovered in Virginia the largest number of homemade pipe bombs they had ever recovered, and many were preloaded into vests. Vest, as in we've seen in the past, Islamic suicide bombers. This also correlates with intel that's been coming out for several years about the illegals that have crossed into the U.S. since 2021 under the JB show, and that they had pre-positioned weapons and also suicide vests. Also, the FBI is investigating the tie between the recovery of the pipe bombs in Virginia to the improvised bombs in New Orleans. And we have this. The FBI also were investigating Jabbar's house in Houston, Texas. They put a perimeter around the house. This happened January 1. And citizens in Houston were advised to stay away from the area. It was in the area in Houston of Hugh Road and Crescent Peak Drive, located in North Houston. The FBI and the Harris County sheriffs were investigating. And now we have this. After this the driver, Jabbar, drove into a crowd of people. So far, it's believed 15 have died. Also, 2 New Orleans police officers were shot and wounded. And we had 15 die and about 30 to 35 injured when he drove his vehicle into a crowd. After that, we had security concerns for the Rose Bowl to be played in California Ohio State versus Oregon, but I believe it started on time, about 5 p.m. However, the Sugar Bowl, scheduled for December 31, Wednesday, was postponed and is to begin and was played yesterday about 4 p.m. Now, in the New Orleans area, so we had a driver, Jabbar. He drove into a crowd. He killed 15, wounded, injured another 30 or 35 people. He also got out of his vehicle and started firing a gun and wounded 2 New Orleans police officers. He was shot and killed. But rumors persist that there were other bombs planted, and it's believed Jabbar had other people involved in this plot, including 3 men and 1 woman who in the New Orleans area were planting bombs. Apparently, the bombs have been secured by the FBI and the New Orleans police, and now they're saying no one else it was a single shooter. You know, it follows a prototype put out in the past few years by both the CIA and the FBI. He was Jabbar, a U.S. citizen living in Texas, 42 years old. Shamsud Jabbar. And I recall that Mike from Around the World is regularly on Pastor Paul Begley's Thursday night program. We believe Mike works for the U.S. government, NSA, or FEMA. Has been saying for the past 1 to 2 years that the embedded jihadists are people who have been living in the U.S. for multiple generations. Now, Mike was putting forth that they were overcome by their allegiance to their Islamic faith. I submit these individuals may self-identify as following the Islamic faith, but I believe they are MK-altered individuals involved and controlled by the CIA and Black Ops in the U.S. military. MK-Ultra is a program to mind control individuals, MK-Ultra. Sufficient data has come out in the last 5 to 10 years detailing MK-Ultra programs in the CIA and the U.S. military Black Ops programs, where individuals are mind controlled, sometimes through physical abuse, drugs, also implants. So that's going on. And I believe that's what we're seeing. I believe we're seeing a deep state coordinated attack on the U.S. using MK-altered individuals who are under the control of the CIA and the Black Ops of the U.S. military. So that's going on. And now we have this. So we have in New Orleans, so the shooter, bomber, Jabbar, drove his vehicle into a crowd. According to a New Orleans police superintendent, Ann Kilpatrick, USA Today confirms the driver was killed by the police December 31, and that on his truck, the F-150 Lightning, he had an ISIS flag. So that's going on. And now we have this. Yeah, the Sugar Bowl was rescheduled. That was Georgia versus Notre Dame. It was played Thursday is to be played Thursday at 4 p.m. It had originally been scheduled to be played about 9 o'clock Wednesday night. Okay, we have in New Orleans a T attack, a terrorist attack that happened December 31. So this one happened about 3:15 a.m., December 31. And we have now, I believe it's confirmed dead 15. So that's going on. Yep. And now we have this. So in Las Vegas, the bomber has been identified as a current active duty U.S. Army Green Beret Special Forces Matthew Levisberger, 37, and he drove a truck, a Tesla Cybertruck, also rented through the same app as the vehicle rented by Jabbar. But in Las Vegas, the vehicle was a Tesla Cybertruck, believed to be a slap at Elon Musk. Outside Trump International Hotel, a slap at President Trump. Now, this vehicle had improvised explosives in it, not regular bombs. They had camp fuel containers, some other open source type fuel containers. And this individual who did the bombing in Las Vegas, Levisberger, also served at Fort Bragg. He's a Special Forces sergeant on leave from Germany. So he is currently active duty Special Forces Green Beret, serving at a site in Germany. And he was home in the U.S., well, we could euphemistically say for the holidays, but apparently to do a bombing. Now, the Tesla Cyber vehicle is an electric vehicle that has bulletproof glass and special armor around the vehicle. So the bombing in front of the Trump Hotel was contained inside the vehicle. And of course, the driver was killed. USA Today reports about Levisberger, the Las Vegas bomber, Green Beret active duty. He's been in the Army 19 years. And this bombing took place in front of the Trump Hotel at 8:40 a.m. So we see coordination in date and time. And the driver died in the vehicle, the Green Beret. The explosion did injure 7 American citizens who were just in the area. He had gasoline canisters, camp fuel containers, and fireworks mortars. So not a traditional bomb. And now we have this, the shooting in Queens, New York. This happened December 31. We had 11 wounded. This happened at 11:20 p.m. And the gun, so get this, 4 men got out of vehicles and started firing guns into a crowd. And this was a private party at the Amazura Event Hall. Young people aged 16 to 20 were hit and wounded. Now, I submit you have 4 men getting out of vehicles, firing 30 rounds, and no one's killed. So obviously, the intent there was to create fear. The 4 gunmen escaped in a gray Infiniti. We understand it's a light-colored Infiniti. There's currently an active search for them. And now, from last days, a Christian individual had put out information a while ago, I don't know, weeks or months, about attacks in Las Vegas and New Orleans, potential in Nashville, Tennessee, and that this would come about by men associated with the Islamic faith, and that we would see similar incidents take place in Europe and also Canada, also Pennsylvania and New York. Well, we see New Orleans, Las Vegas, and New York. Yeah. The shooting at Queens, 4 male shooters fired 30 rounds into a crowd outside of a building. This was a private party being held to honor a gang leader who had passed away in October, but whose birthday was January 1. The suspects fled and escaped in a light-colored sedan that's been identified as an Infiniti. And it comes out this vehicle had out-of-state plates. And the victims were 16 to 20 years old. They all received non-life-threatening injuries. So we see that was just done to intimidate. In Queens, the Amazura Event Hall private party to honor a gang leader who had passed away in October, as reported by the New York Metro. So this concludes my flash, but I want to sum this up. America is under terrorist attack, but the attackers are operating within our gates. That's within the Black Ops programs and the CIA, the FBI, the U.S. military, FEMA, Homeland Security, and so on. And certainly in these instances, we see them using a soldier who had been in the Army and National Guard, who's now out, and an active duty Green Beret. We don't know much about what's going on in Queens. So it's good to keep our eyes open, and what do we see with our lying eyes and hear with our own lying ears. We see a pattern here, and I submit the U.S. military, and we have many millions associated with U.S. military who are patriots, just like you and I, the same with the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, FEMA, and so on. But there are some deep state embedded players in both many of our U.S. government agencies and in our U.S. military. So it's good to pray for America and for world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.